The antagonist in the movie is a 10-year-old boy named Michael Myers from Illinois. He has a tough life at home and school because he's shy and strange. His mom, Deborah, works as a popular stripper in the city. The weird thing about Michael is that he likes to hurt and cut up animals while wearing a Halloween clown costume. His latest victim was his pet mouse. One day, while Michael is doing his strange stuff, his mom, Deborah, is cooking for the family. We find out that her boyfriend, Ronnie, is loud, ill-tempered, alcoholic, and aggressive to her. He says mean things about Deborah's teenage daughter, Judith, and their baby daughter, Boo. Boo cries whenever Ronnie yells. Meanwhile, Michael comes downstairs wearing his clown mask and tells everyone that his pet mouse died. His mom comforts him and promises to get a new one, but she doesn't ask how the mouse died. Then Ronnie tells Michael to take off the clown mask, but Michael refuses. So Ronnie forcefully removes it. Later that day at school, Michael meets a bully named Wesley and his friend in the bathroom. They make fun of him because his mom is a stripper. Michael gets upset and starts yelling "shut up" while trying to fight the bullies alone. The principal walks in and stops the fight, but Michael gets even angrier and yells at the principal, which gets him into more trouble. The principal calls Deborah to come to the school. Instead of getting mad at her son, she yells at the principal and says he's irresponsible. The principal explains that Michael is a special child and arranges a meeting with Dr. Sam Loomis, a child psychologist. During the meeting, Dr. Loomis shows Deborah evidence that Michael hurts animals and has signs of being a sociopath. The principal found a dead cat and pictures of animal mutilation in Michael's bag. Dr. Loomis explains that these are warning signs, and only someone with a messed up mind would enjoy hurting animals. Meanwhile, Michael runs away from school and finds Wesley, the bully, in the woods. Out of nowhere, he hits Wesley with a big branch from a tree. Wesley falls down, and Michael keeps hitting him, letting out all his anger. Wesley is in pain and crying, begging Michael to stop hurting him. But the mean boy gets even more aggressive and ends up killing Wesley. That night, Michael goes home and waits for his sister, Judith, to take him trick-or-treating. His mother also tells Judith to take care of her brother before she leaves for work. However, Judith has no intention of taking Michael out. Just as their mom leaves, Judith's boyfriend, Stephen, comes over, and they go upstairs to have some fun. This leaves Michael feeling lonely and upset, so he puts on his mask and goes outside. But after a while, he returns home and finds his mother's boyfriend, Ronnie, asleep in a chair. This is the perfect opportunity for the mischievous child to seek revenge. In a fit of madness, he ties Ronnie to the chair using duct tape and fatally stabs him with a butcher knife. Sometime later, Judith's boyfriend, Steve, comes downstairs to make sandwiches in the kitchen. Upon seeing him, Michael grabs an aluminum bat and strikes Steve across the back of his head. Steve falls to the floor, twitching, and Michael watches him for a moment before continuing to beat him until he dies. Michael then goes upstairs and discovers his sister Judith sleeping in her room. He takes off his clown mask and puts on Steve's large, pale Halloween mask. As Judith wakes up, he runs his fingers along her leg. Annoyed and startled by Michael's presence in her room, she demands to know what he is doing. When he doesn't respond, she slaps him on the head. Michael stabs his own sister in the stomach, killing her. When their mother returns from work, she finds Michael sitting on the front porch, holding his infant sister. She anxiously asks why he is outside so late, while police sirens can be heard in the background. The next day, Michael is found guilty of first-degree murder and is sent to a mental hospital under the care of Dr. Loomis. Despite committing cold-blooded murders, Michael feigns innocence, claiming he doesn't remember anything. Deborah visits him every week, but Michael's condition seems to worsen over time. Several months pass, and he continues to deceive the doctors. During a session with Dr. Loomis, Michael shows him a new mask he made for himself, explaining that he wears it to hide his ugliness. One day, after a long absence, his mother visits him and tries to communicate with him. However, Michael remains silent and more isolated than ever. She shows him an old photo of him and his infant sister, hoping to uplift his spirits, and suggests he hang it in his room, but the wicked boy remains silent. After the appointment, Dr. Loomis escorts Michael to the care of a nurse while Deborah leaves the sanitarium. This proves to be a grave mistake as, when they are alone, Michael becomes aggressive and fatally stabs the nurse, with a fork. Eventually, Deborah and Dr. Loomis discover the incident and are left speechless. Deborah, in particular, is devastated after witnessing the true extent of her son's capabilities. Later, Deborah returns home and watches old films of Michael when he was an innocent child. She cries as she remembers the past and questions her abilities as a mother. Overwhelmed by the pain, she commits a shocking act. The movie then fast forwards 15 years. Michael is now a towering man still locked up in the mental hospital. He hasn't spoken since his last murder and spends his time making masks. Dr. Loomis has given up on treating him and instead wrote a successful book portraying Michael as irredeemably evil. One night, Michael is busy making masks when two janitors arrive in his cell and start having their way with a female. Michael shows no reaction and continues working on his masks. But when the janitors finish, he attacks them, slamming one against the table and repeatedly beating the other before smashing his head against the wall. The authorities alert Ismail, the guard who has cared for Michael since childhood. Ismail arrives at the cell block and finds two bloody bodies. He immediately understands what has happened. He tries to lead Michael back to his cell, but is brutally attacked and killed with a television set. After the massacre, Michael escapes from the asylum, ready to unleash more chaos. In the next scene, he arrives at a truck stop and gets into a fight with the driver. He repeatedly slams the driver against the wall until he dies. Michael steals the driver's overalls, discarding his own clothes. The next morning, which happens to be Halloween Day, Michael returns to his family home in Haddonfield. The house has remained abandoned since his mother's death. There, he retrieves his favorite butcher knife and mask. Meanwhile, we meet Laurie Strode, a diligent college student from Haddonfield. Her father, a real estate agent, asks her to deliver some papers to the old Myers residence, which locals believe to be haunted. Unbeknownst to Laurie, Michael sees her and becomes intrigued. He follows her to college and starts stalking her. We learn that Laurie is often lonely and spends her time babysitting a 10-year-old boy from the neighborhood. On the other hand, her best friends, Linda and Annie, are popular and well-liked. Later on Halloween night, Annie convinces Laurie to babysit her son, James, so she can have fun with her boyfriend. On the other hand, Linda joins her partner for a party at the old Myers residence, where Michael is present and observes them. When Linda's boyfriend leaves to use the bathroom, Michael attacks and kills him. He proceeds to eliminate Linda as well. Afterward, Michael heads to Laurie's house, where he murders her parents shortly after she leaves for her babysitting job. His spree continues as he arrives at Annie's house, where she is spending time with her boyfriend. Michael ruthlessly kills Annie's boyfriend and then assaults her. Later, Laurie arrives at the scene with James and discovers the horrifying sight. Annie is in shock, undressed, while her boyfriend's body hangs from the ceiling. Suddenly, Michael appears and begins attacking Laurie. She manages to escape, but he relentlessly pursues her and ambushes her. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis is informed of Michael's escape. He rushes to Haddonfield and desperately urges the local sheriff to acknowledge the danger posed by Michael Myers' return. The sheriff tries to reach Laurie to check on her, but she doesn't answer. Eventually, the sheriff uncovers the truth after some investigation. Laurie is Michael's sister, adopted after Deborah's unspeakable act. Dr. Loomis realizes that Michael is aware of this fact, explaining his obsession with Laurie. Fearing for Laurie's safety, the doctor decides to visit the Myers residence. Meanwhile, Laurie is still alive but held captive. Michael drops his knife and shows her a picture of their childhood together, hoping she will remember. However, Laurie, who was just an infant at the time, does not recognize or recall anything. Seizing the opportunity, she stabs Michael in the neck and escapes into the backyard. Unfortunately, her attack only superficially affects his large frame. Laurie is relentlessly pursued by her psychopathic brother, who eventually corners her in an empty pool. Fortunately, the doctor arrives just in time and pleads with Michael to stop. When his pleas go unanswered, the doctor shoots Michael multiple times in the back. Afterward, the doctor and Laurie attempt to flee, but Michael miraculously rises, shatters the car's windshield, and pulls her out. He is poised to end her life, but the doctor desperately intervenes, urging him to release her. Surprisingly, Michael relents and hands Laurie. However, in the next moment, he viciously attacks the doctor and causing his demise. Meanwhile, Laurie seizes the opportunity, grabs a nearby gun, and escapes upstairs. Michael relentlessly pursues her, eventually cornering her on a balcony. In a violent struggle, he tackles her through the window, and they both plummet over the railing. A while later, Laurie regains consciousness, finding herself on top of an incapacitated Michael. She seizes the opportunity and aims the gun at him, pulling the trigger. However, to her shock, Michael suddenly awakens and grabs her wrist, trying to overpower her. Laurie doesn't waver and continues to fire several more shots at him, determined to end the nightmare once and for all. The movie concludes with Laurie, covered in the blood of the psychopath, screaming hysterically in a mix of relief, fear, and exhaustion. Michael Myers is finally dead, bringing an end to his reign of terror. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to help this channel grow. Turn on notifications for newest video. Thank you and see you next time.